So on this week's episode of Be More Super, the podcast, we're joined by an awesome guest from one of my favourite shows. Well, it's doing so well on Netflix at the moment. It is crazy. It's, of course, Warrior Nun, and we've got one of the best characters from the show. It's William Miller. William, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much for having me, Brian. Pleasure to be here.
And I've got to say, first off, congratulations on a season 2. I've got a little slide I'm just going to put up here because it is done so well. There we go. So
Yeah.
Warrior Nun has literally had the highest audience scores ever in the history of Netflix. Rotten Tomatoes, 100% critics, 99% audience. This surely has got to deserve a season 3. But how amazing is that to have this amount of success from season 2 already?
Well, I think it's a combination. I mean, first of all, I think we have to acknowledge the fans because rarely have I been on anything that's had such an overwhelming response from the people that watch the show. The fans have been incredible. They're so devoted and dedicated to the show that it's been humbling, really. But then we've also had, even though they are few and far between, we've had some professional critics write on the show, and I think that it's such a mad show. It's such a thing that when it came out, everyone was like, "Well, does Netflix really do anything?" And then they watched it, and they were like, "Well, actually, this is a lot of fun." And even though it's YA, it's young adult, I think there's a lot of stuff on this show that appeals to a very wider audience than we could originally think. There's philosophy, there's love. There's love on many levels, and there's action, and it's all done beautifully. That's why I said I first think we should acknowledge the fans because I think that's who we make the show for, and who have brought it as far along as it is. But there's also the dedication and hard work of everybody, both in front and behind the camera.
Definitely.
I've lived and worked in Spain for years and years, and it was only by coincidence that I was here when they called me because Simon brought me on because Charmaine, who had worked with me on The 100 as the writer, was working on Warrior Nun. Now she's working on House of Dragon. She said, "Listen, I just worked with this guy, and I think he'd be good for the villain we're looking for." And Simon and I just clicked, and he just knows how to choose the people. And Spain, he knew how to choose the right people here too. I've lived in Spain for a very long time. It was only, as I said, a coincidence that I was here. But we got the best of both worlds. Like Europe, I think Spain is a huge country when it comes to making fiction. We got extremely good professionals both in front and behind the camera, and Simon picked the best of them. And I think it's what you see on season 2 and on season 1 is an ode to that. The capacity of a showrunner to put together a really tight team, both in front and behind the camera, and an ode to my own country, which is Spain, and the capability and talent that there is on teams over here to make it look awesome.
I mean, before we delve into Warrior Nun and a bit of your, introduction into the arts, the past 2 years have been quite difficult at times, and I normally ask this question to all my guests because it's quite interesting to find out how you kept positive and moving forwards during the pandemic and everything like that. I mean, how have you kept positive, if you have, and kept moving forwards?
I was actually, like, when season 1 came out, it was during the pandemic. I was in LA, and actually we got quarantined the day after I had lunch with Simon and his beautiful family, and the next day I was supposed to have a visit to the writers' room, and everything got cancelled. And then the show came out a few weeks after that, and we didn't really know what to think. I mean, we didn't know how well it was going to go. You work on something, you can only hope. We did know that we'd worked very hard to make it look great. Obviously, season one, I only came in at the end, but I was very surprised to find such a structured and talented team. And I know they knew that it was gonna be okay because we'd done our jobs properly.
Mm.
We didn't expect the response. The problem about the pandemic is that the industry kept going because everybody was in lockdown, and our jobs suddenly became incredibly relevant because we had to entertain people that were at home and needed to be entertained, needed things to do, not only reading, but I always find that fiction sometimes is like relaxing. Instead of having to read the book, they just tell it to you. I'm an avid reader, and I can't really I don't stand by that comparison, but I do love my job. I love fiction. I love movies. I love shows. And so I wasn't really sure if it was just a product of the pandemic that we'd done so well, or we'd actually done our jobs as well as I hoped we had. And for season 2 to come out and do so well is just proof that it's kind of a validation.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm very happy about, especially not so much for me because, as I said, season 1 was just me at the end, but season 2, there's a lot of me in there. So season 1, it was a validation for Alba, who is one of those actresses. I've encountered some of those actresses or actors in my 25 years of career who I've just said these are stars.
Mm.
It doesn't happen every day, and it's so great that we've had her to captain the team. Simon Barry, who I think is a Midas of show running, of fiction. Everything he touches, he has an ability to choose the right people, and everybody he's done that with everybody in front of the camera and behind. And how I survived lockdown, I think it was just through friends, and becoming proactive and making sure that nobody was left behind, and making sure that we were busy every day, and we'd go for walks and we'd watch shows together and we'd play Risk together. Just made sure that no one was home alone doing nothing.
Wow, Risk. I haven't heard that game in a long time. That is one of these games that I was forced to play when I was younger.
It's great.
Yeah. Well, no, I just wanted to watch Street Hawk and A-Team and Knight Rider on the TV, and I was forced to play board games. And to this day now, believe it or not, I just don't like board games, especially jigsaws. They're like my kryptonite. They really, really are. So let's explore how you got into acting, because why acting? Why not a 9-to-5 day job? What sparked that performer inside of you to take that journey?
I was raised by women, and by very strong women. My father died when I was very young, and my great grandmother, who was born in Java, she was Dutch, and she married an explorer. And
Wow.
the day she married this man, her friend said, "You're a fool. He'll leave you in a month." And he didn't. They spent the rest of their lives together. They went to China, which was where my grandmother was born, and those were two very strong presences in my childhood. Because when my mother married, my father died when I was very young, and my great grandmother and my grandmother would take care of us while my mother was working. And my mother remarried a man who is to me my dad, my father, a man from New Zealand. So it makes me very from kind of like all over the world. My dad was American, but yeah, my grandmother always said to me, this is the chance we get at living here now.
Mm.
Don't waste it. Don't waste it. And to me, we live in a world where everything is set up for us to actually waste
Mm.
our lives. Like, we'll spend time doing a 9 to 5ers that just help society move on, and that might be very far from what we're meant to do while we're here. So I was very clear that if I was going to do anything, it should be something I liked. My grandmother was very into history, as was my great grandmother. So she said, no matter what you do, make sure you can hold your own sitting at a table with anybody from whatever social background it is. So I decided to study history and archaeology. But since a young age, I'd always been very interested in music because it just moved me a lot,
Mm.
and so I started playing in bands and rock bands when I was 15, and the stage kind of captivated me. At the same time, my mother used to. And you're English, you know what pantomime is.
I have been in a few pantomimes for Jim Davison. I played Captain Cringe in Dick Whittington, the
So you know
pirate.
what panto is.
Mm.
My mum used to do makeup, and she used to work with a panto group from Barcelona, and I used to be behind stages, and I'd dream about being on the stage because I loved it so much. I just loved watching the faces of the audience, of people believing the story, of the children going, "Sure, oh
Mm.
no." I just found it fascinating to be able to move people in that way, to be able to tell stories. But that was kind of second. It was always behind my mind. Music became my first stage. But as I started studying history and archaeology in university, I ended up being an archaeologist. I ended up working with the UCL in Egypt.
Wow.
But it kind of, I'm, it is a passion of mine, but the way that the politics behind the job, it was so, I'm not going to say corrupt, but so capitalist. Like,
Mm.
you can only dig a certain era if you're from a certain university because they pay to be in this place at this time. So
Mm.
it became something that was too politicized, and it it saddened me immensely. And I remember it was the millennium. It was the year 2000. I was in front of the pyramids listening to Jean-Michel Jarre, and for some reason seeing penguins come down a slope from the pyramids, and I was in a state of mind. I'm not going to say why, but I mean, the millennium. That I started to question what I was doing in life, and what I really found out is that I wasn't enjoying what I was doing, and I wasn't going to enjoy what I was doing because of what it required of me. So I had one of those illuminations. I was just like, well, what else is on the table for me? And I just thought of stage. So I went to Madrid, and I got myself into one of the best schools for it, and got my education, and it started to come easily. Even though it was in a country where it is very hard to work because there's not that much of it, and especially
Mm.
being a foreigner in a country, the first parts you get are kind of what you look like. So it's taken me 25 years to actually play the kind of roles that demand something something more of a performer.
Mm.
Um, so it's been slow but steady, and eventually fruitful. But that was it basically. Do what you want to do in life, or if you're gonna make a bet on yourself, and bet on doing what you think is right for you. Uh, it's tough. It's very hard because this profession, there's only 4% of us actually live off this job, and within
Wow, I
that,
didn't know that.
yeah, and within that 4%, there's very, very, very few selected that become those that everybody wants, that become the A-list.
Mm.
The rest of us are just there to support them and make them look the best as possible, and help tell the story. So I'm lucky to be within the 4%, and I'm lucky to have been doing what I wanted to do in life. And wherever my great grandma, my grandmother are, I'm sure they're happy that is the way I went, and that is what I'm choosing, because at least I am doing what I've chosen, be it
Super.
right or wrong. I'm
Yes.
doing what
Super proud. I am absolutely positive she will be. I mean, when starting out, did you have a plan in place of what you wanted to achieve in the arts?
Oh,
Uh,
well, yeah, because I always admired actors that were character actors, the performers that would actually surprise me every time I saw them on screen, just doing something different. Um, but I was told early on by teachers or agents, they'd always be like, "No, no, no, but you have to be this because you have this
mm,
look, and you have to be this hero, this leading man." And I was like, "No, I don't want to do that. It doesn't click with me, because what is expected from people who play those roles is is the empathy, is to be relatable, is to be likable."
mm,
And I always, because of the schooling I had, I always played it real. To me, it was all about the psyche, the psychology, what's happening behind everything, what's happening in the mind. If you're going to tell the story, be truthful.
mm,
And be truthful. Sometimes well, not sometimes, you always have to be real. And being real means not being perfect,
mm,
because none of us. So I'd always be like, no, I'm a supporting actor. I'm a character actor, which didn't go down well with most people, because the younger version of me was no, but you got to be the hero. And I was like, no, no. So it took a while. It took a while. It took a lot of upsets, a lot of not understanding why I wasn't getting what I wanted to get, and because I try to play those roles that they called me for in a more real way, I wasn't getting those either. So there was a few casting directors that were like, "I know what this guy wants, and I know what he's doing, and I don't think we should lose him, because there's an intelligence behind it, and there's a dramatic intelligence behind it, and I think we should work with that, and I think we should give him the opportunities." And slowly but steadily, I started to get, not jobs, but I did start to get auditions with Coen Brothers, with Antoine Fuqua, with Jonathan Nolan. John Papsidero was even though I haven't worked on one of his projects,
mm.
we almost did it on a couple of occasions, but I couldn't because I was doing something else. But he really pushed me to make me understand that I wasn't wrong in what I was looking for. And 25 years later, I think I've I've proven to myself that I wasn't wrong, and that the direction I took is the longest and the hardest, but I wasn't wrong.
Mm.
Um, I'm I think I'm getting there.
Oh, I tell you what though, you obviously are doing something, right, because this character of Adriel in Warrior Nun is just stunning. It really, really is. Character actor extraordinaire. Literally, I was scared to interview because your character on screen is scary as hell, so intense, so focused, and you're really nice in real life, which is great because you never know when you interview people what they're going to be like compared to their characters. So let's talk about Warrior Nun, because what attracted you to the role of Adriel when you had it, the opportunity to go for it?
Well, the fact that the fact that it actually came to me because somebody who was on the writing room for the 100 recommended me for Warrior Nun. That was already kind of a green flag because I was like, anybody who's writing the 100, which I know it's a CW show and I know it's a young audience, but there was something else to that show, and Jason
Mm.
Rothenberg, great job on that show. When they started to allow him to do what he felt the show needed, and when I started working on that show, I had so much liberty to create a character, and not only that, I had constant conversations with the showrunner. So anybody who was writing on that show, who was going on to another one, and was recommending me for it, I would take seriously.
Mm.
I must admit, when my agents called me and said, yeah, they want to see you for a show called Warrior Nun, I was like, there's a show called Warrior Nun? I was like, God. Um, but then they told me how it had happened, and I was like, well, I need to consider it. I need to take it seriously. So send me the material and let's check it out. And when I started reading it, I was like, well, this is actually really interesting. It's not what I expected at all. Obviously, the fact that it was Netflix. I do like Netflix because I think they, out of all the platforms, they're kind of they make such wild choices, like, and I've seen shows from Korea, I've seen shows from China, I've
Mm.
seen shows from Japan, I've seen so many different shows, Mexico, so many shows from Mexico that are brilliant on Netflix, and I
Mm.
think they really try and find something for everyone, and I really admire that about the platform. So it was for Netflix. I was like, well, let's give it some thought, and because Charmaine had recommended me, I was like, right, yeah, we got to do this. At the same time, it was at a time where I was having some personal problems, and I really needed the work. So I'm not gonna lie about that, but I'm glad it was actually Warrior Nun and not something else, because I think the universe came together for something special to happen.
It was meant to be for sure. And, when taking on a role like this, as an actor, how do you take it from page to screen? What sort of work do you do to get into the mind of this character and build it? I mean, is there a process that you follow, like this character that you do with all your others, or was it different?
I always follow a process, and a lot of that process has to do with I always find there's two approaches to a script there, and that has a lot to do with the different schools of acting there are. There is either I read the script and I say, how do I make this become me? Or I read the script and I say, how do I become what's on the page? And
Mm.
I always choose the latter because I feel that that's what an actor should do. You must become what is there. You shouldn't make what is there become you. Um, with villains, it's a lot of fun. I always try and go as far away from myself as possible because that's when I enjoy the acting. I enjoy not recognizing myself in the work I do. Um, for Adriel, it was complicated because I understood that we were moving within this world of a comic book. So I understood that we could push the villain side of things a bit further than usual. And I was very interested in that because sometimes that makes it a lot more fun. I hate when sometimes people insist on characters not being black or white, but gray. I get it, I understand it, but if they're not written properly, or if you don't have the time to write that grayness in there, it's just going to be diffused. It's not going to be clear.
Mm.
And I was like, well, I'd rather make him more black than gray. And the fact that he'd been locked away for so long kind of helped because I was like, well, somebody like that is probably going a bit mental and just wants to have a bit of fun. Not only that, I imagine that within the lore of the story, as he says in season two, there had been one that had come before him but had failed in his mission. And
Mm.
because of the way the time moves differently in their own dimension, I reckon, well, what if they knew each other? And that guy
Mm.
got chosen before he had. And there's a reason why that guy got chosen before he had, was because A, he was probably a better warrior, and B, maybe he was a bit more mentally stable than this guy. So when he goes in after that guy and everything goes wrong, I mean, yeah, I think that I don't I think that what we understand as angels within the lore of Warrior Nun are actually these beings. They're not angelic, they're not divine, they're not perfect. They have their flaws. They're these entities that could be angels, demons, whatever. Each one of them has their character. But this guy, you know, he has a lot of fun, and that's what attracted me about him. And then there was the philosophy behind the whole thing. The philosophy made sense to me.
Mm.
Like when it comes to Adriel, it just reminds me. And although the genre has nothing to do with it, there is something about the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy that comes to mind. It's what's the greater good?
Mm. Yeah.
What is this to me? What is it worth to me in comparison of what we might lose, or what might happen if I fail? You know, yeah, maybe a couple of billion people who are destroying their own world will die, but there's quadrillions at stake,
Mm.
galaxies. I don't know. I don't know if that's the way Simon and the writers are going to take it, but that's what I thought.
Mm.
This right now in comparison of the danger of what we might lose. This is disposable.
Mm. I mean, I've got
And
to.
that's why I think he takes those dramatic choices. Like, I do think at the beginning he tries to play game, and he's like, "Listen, I don't want to hurt anybody, but
Mm.
I need you to confirm me as being this that I'm saying, because if you don't, I'm gonna have to do it myself, and it's gonna be ugly. But it needs to be done.
Mm.
It's the losses. It's the greater good."
Yeah, I think the writing on this and the story itself is just amazing because it makes you come away thinking a lot of things. And I mean, I was brought up Catholic, so for this show, it's quite interesting. To be fair, you think, what if? It's a bit like the pyramids and the aliens. Do you know what I mean? It's like, did they build the pyramids? I mean, I've been to Mexico, I've been to the Chichen Itza and looked around those pyramids and just in awe. And with this, you think to yourself, it could, or does it?
I think
And it.
I think humanity is capable of the most beautiful things, and at the
Mm.
same time, we're capable of the most awful.
Mm.
Uh, as an archaeologist, I can't really dwell into the construction of pyramids and everything because I'd be talking to you for hours. Because there's a reason why the pyramid shape is the most obvious for early constructions in human history. But going back to Adriel, to me it was all I wanted to make it fun,
Mm.
and I wanted to make him. Yes, I thought the text. I thought David Hayter is such a great writer, and I thought the writing room had made enough of a case for him to be understood, and for people, if they really listened to what he said, I thought they'll get why he's doing this if they really listen. But I also wanted to give that edge of, dude, what a fucking dick. Because at the end of the day, I was like, the worse I am, the more you're gonna love your heroes. And to me, a great villain in something where you can play black has to be about that. You got to make people love the good by playing a good bad.
And you've got to love a villain as well, because the worse you got, literally, the more I was screaming at the screen, going, "Yeah!" Because you've got to have a good villain to have the good, heroes. Um,
Absolutely. I'm with villains. I'm always like I'm not going to enjoy it unless I can dive like as deep as I can into
mm,
it, and that's where I find the fun because I do love the villains that are justified, and if it's well written and there's enough time to explain why this person became as he is, yeah, that's all great. But it's like when you watch Silence of the Lambs. There's no backstory to Hannibal Lecter, none at
mm,
all. But he's terrifying.
mm,
He's believable, and that is enough. You don't have empathy with him. You have it with her, but there's such an intelligence behind what he's saying, and you start to understand. Well, but that's the way he is,
mm,
and you accept it, and it's terrifying. But that's what I love about villains, because as an actor, it is your job to understand why they're like that, even though the story doesn't say why he is how he is. But he has to be believable. The only way to make him believable is for the actor himself to understand why the character is as he is. And
mm.
and, and if whether I'm right or wrong when it comes to the writing, I'm not sure. But at least my truth, when I perform, hopefully the character is believable because I did my homework as a
Mm.
performer, and I always choose to play it as black as I can within the realm of being believable.
I mean, I've got a fan question here from Katie Lester. She wanted to ask, did you base your character on anyone? I mean, did you model the character on anyone, in our world? Any, villainous characters? Was it inspired? Because she's really puzzled because you're very intense, she says, in the show, and she likes it.
Well, I felt that he had to be. It was a huge problem to me, like the way he would speak, because it couldn't be modern. It couldn't be a nowadays
Mm.
guy. You can't come out of a tomb after 1,000 years. And be, oh, hello everyone.
Yeah, all right, mate.
Give us a beer. It couldn't be that. He had to have something otherworldly, which was very difficult because we're surrounded by Alba, who's very much the teen from today, um, and then you're surrounded by people who are from a different social class but still actual. So to me, I had to find something that would be relatable in a modern world, but also stand backish as if he could be eternal. He could be from any time. And I've always found that that's why I had to use a kind of very British accent. And there's always been a musicality to a certain way of speaking that I've admired from actors that are from the 1950s, 60s, Marlon Brando, even Tony Hopkins when he started, um, Al Pacino, these actors that they modulate, they
Mm.
make what they say interesting because of the way they say it. So to me, it was all about um, what does every word mean?
Mm.
Because there was so much. Adriel becomes a character. I'm sorry, an information character. He's giving you a lot of info of where he comes from and what he wants to do, and those characters can become extremely boring if you don't modulate it enough to a help people understand and become enthralled with what he's saying, and b you don't want to get them bored
Mm.
watching just talk on scene. So I found that kind of delivery from actors from that time, which are the actors that I kind of grew up with the next generation of those actors that applied it to to more like recent movies, like movies in the 80s and 90s. The intelligent characters.
Mm.
You know, it's the Fiennes brothers. It's Anthony Hopkins. It's God. I'm gonna hate myself for this moment because I can't remember his name. Who played Snape on Harry Potter?
Alan Rickman.
Alan Rickman. You know, these creators of characters, and every character has a way of speaking, and the only way you can do that and do it believably is if you chew every word, listen to every word, masticate every word, and deliver every word with meaning. That's the only way that those characters become interesting.
And I completely agree. I mean, those actors could literally read out a shopping list, and you could literally be mesmerised by that. Can you imagine?
I dare you to make Adriel read a shopping list.
That would be hilarious. That should be one of the bloopers, the outtakes.
It should. Like, just have them there kind of going like, toilet paper, smooth, best quality, cleaning products, new broom, mop, cook of the chocolate chip variety.
You know now this is going to get cut and literally it's going to be shared, and it's going to be like Adriel doing his shopping, which is awesome. But obviously the show looks like it was so much fun to work on, and I've got a lovely picture here of you and Lorena. There you go. Relaxing. Obviously, this is behind the scenes. This isn't a scene from it.
No. That was a scene that was cut out.
Was it? Oh, darn it! What was it like to work with Lorena? Because you share so many great scenes, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone and go into detail in like sort of what happens, because people need to watch Warrior Nun. If you watched it, you need to watch it again, because it's one of those shows that literally you notice things a second, third time, fourth time round. But what was it like working with her? Because she's such an awesome actor. She really is.
Lorena has a great presence, and I was very thankful for that because the scenes I had with her, I felt so bad because it was mostly me just talking, and I've always thought that a good actor is an actor who knows how to listen. I remember many years ago doing a Eric McCormack episode of God, I can't remember the name. It was something I did in the US, and when I went to I went to the production offices one day, and the editor was there, and he said, "Oh, you're the guy that played this character," and I was like, "Yeah." He said, "Dude, I could cut any scene of yours. I could just cut to you listening. You were always present." And Lorena has that. She's always present, and she has such great presence too. She's a pleasure to work with. She has the added factor that she does overthink things a lot, and a lot of good comes out of that many times. But you know, we've been very lucky with all the actresses we've had on this show, because despite them being young, upcoming actresses, they're all extremely talented, and I'm just grateful that I had that kind of presence next to me when I had the scenes that were mostly me just blah 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 blah.
Get out of it. Your scenes are awesome.
That we could cut such a beautiful face and presence just listening to me talking away.
But you talk about the tonality of your voice. There are scenes when you're explaining your past and what's happened to your character, and true what you're saying in the way of the tonality and how you say things, because that was very hypnotic. Listening to the story of Adriel and what had happened to you, it was just absolutely awesome. That is probably one of my favorite scenes.
One of the things that I always say, because I love the way they edited that, because they have Mina's character uh, telling the story at the same time as I am. And the curious thing about this is that the audience is led to believe Mina. And what you have there, you have on one hand you have a character that's telling you the story from first-hand experience. The other character is telling you the story that has been passed down through how many generations? Like, this is what I love about Warrior Nun, because what if Adriel was telling the truth? And I'm not saying that is what's going on here, but what if he has been telling the truth all along? It kind of turns the tables, and that's what I love about it so much, because I've always believed, I was brought up Catholic, and I've never, when I started studying history, I never believed the stories in the Bible. I always believed them to be, stories passed down through generations from one hand to the other, and they all get. It's like when you do that game of somebody writes something on a piece of paper and you pass it around the table, or you whisper it in somebody's ear, and what reaches the end of that is completely different to how it began. And I myself believe someone like Jesus Christ existed, whether or not I really don't think it's who's in the Bible. That politics switch things around in a way that benefits power. And this is what I love about Adriel and the way he's written. He's very direct and very honest in the way he speaks about things that he could get him into immense trouble. But I believe there's a lot of truth there, and there's phrases that come out of his mouth that could come out of my own as a historian, an archaeologist, and a student of prehistory. The way that power manipulates history for its own success. But I love that scene. I love the way it's done. I love the way that you're hearing the story from the good guys through a book, and you're hearing the story from the bad guy, and he's like firsthand,
Yeah.
But fiction, the way it's done, makes you believe the good. But interestingly enough, Warrior Nun's not written that way. Anything can happen.
Anything can happen, and obviously one of my also favourite scenes is near the end, and I've got to say the visual effects on this show is just jaw-dropping. It really is, and we see some awesome scenes with you. What's it like to actually film certain scenes where that there's going to be some visual effects, to then watching it back in its full glory?
Well, filming it is awful, because I've been in that situation on so many occasions, and you suddenly either got nothing, like you're fighting the air, or you're standing there getting ripped apart by nothing, or you've got men in green suits, which I love comedy, and I can't help it. Sometimes things like that happen on set, and I just crack up. I can't help it. I'm like, seriously, are we going to do this? Is this guy going to be holding me? And but luckily enough, as you said, we had Embassy VFX on this show. Now, for those of you who don't know who the Embassy VFX are, they're the ones that made the Mach 1 Iron Man suit. They did Chappie. They did Lost in Space. They've done so much work that to me is some of the best work that's ever been done on VFX, because Winston Helgeson, the president of the company, is a dear friend of mine. I met him on season 1 of Warrior Nun, and we've become very close. and his mind is like, it's not like, let's make the spaceship look cool, or this suit look cool, or the way this guy's face falls apart look cool. It's about, how does it really, like, how does it work? How do we make it real? And I think that's what makes the embassy different from everybody else. They have a need to make it look functional.
Mm.
Like, you believe it because they study. It's like if Leonardo da Vinci nowadays were working on a VFX program. It's like, okay, they just blew this guy's head apart. How would it reconstruct? You know, so he's thinking about the bone, the muscle, the
Mm.
tendon, and the skin. It's not how cool it's going to look; it's how real we can make it look, and that's why the VFX are so kick-ass. Like, you know, obviously we could always have like a greater budget for something um, on all departments, but everybody who's been chosen for Warrior Nun are people that do, and I'm not exaggerating here, they make miracles with what they have.
Mm.
And I'm including the fan base on this. Like, with so little promotion, the fan base is another member of the Warrior Nun team, because the job they're doing is making this so much more spectacular. Like, this show has that.
Mm.
Everybody involved on all departments has become fundamental to make the show
Mm.
what it is.
And what's been your fondest memory of working on the show over season 1 and 2?
The people I met. Sometimes when you do a show, you sometimes, if you're lucky, you'll take away one or two people that will become friends for life. On this show, I've had the luck and honor to take away at least three or four, which is rare. And not only that, you'll do a show sometimes where you just get on set and you know what's going on, and you're like, okay, this is this,
Mm.
and get on with it, and then it can look better or worse, but it's not the magic that you might be looking for when it comes to doing something that you feel is special. And when I met the team, my the first people I met when I did Warrior Nun were Simon Barry, um, Winston Helgeson, Chris Levisser, um, Neil Impey, and Alba Baptista. And those people are people that I know that in the future, even if I'm not part of whatever they do, I know that whatever they do is going to be amazing. So I've had the luck to say that I've worked with future galaxies
Mm.
of creation.
That's awesome. You know what? It's just nice to see just like a massive family on that set, on and off the set. It just seems really nice. And yeah, you're right. The fans have got behind it 110%, and the fan base is just crazy, and it's just awesome to see the amount of love for a show that's just brilliant. I mean, your outfits on this show. We've just got a few more questions left. Your outfits on this show is just immense. It really is. I don't know if I've got another picture.
So the outfits, yeah. I mean, the outfits were made by Cristina Sopena. She's an extremely talented costume artist, and whilst on season one she wasn't able to do much, and season two, like, even though, like, how do you dress nuns? She was like, well, there's only so far I can go with that, and the Pope and the priests and the but the character that she was like, I want to go crazy. I want to be different. I want to do Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, and I was delighted with it because I'd known her from before. Like, she's an award-winning costume designer, in Spain, and to me it was like, just do whatever you want. I'm all for it. Just have fun. And she was like, you're gonna be my you're gonna be my Ken doll for this. Like I'm gonna use all the fancy dresses on you. And I was like, I'm fine. I love it because I also think the character um, has that edge to him where he enjoys the materials.
Mm.
Uh, my only fight with her was like, I would have done the suit just because I would have done the suit because I think it would have been hilarious, but she was probably right. Messiah Classic works best, I guess.
And did you keep anything from the show as like a memento?
I so wanted to. I mean, can you imagine that?
Going down the
Like,
shops, as
just no, or just walking around your house, wearing one of those gowns, hey, honey, let's have breakfast. I made breakfast in bed, and just it would be terrifying. But some of it was definitely. I couldn't keep any of it. Like all of this stuff. She still has it, obviously, for season 3.
what are we getting a season 3?
Dude, I hope so. I don't know what to say because obviously it's not up to any of us, but listen to Forbes, listen to NME,
Yeah.
listen to the fans, listen to the crowds, and not only that, trust the choices you make as Netflix. You were right.
Mm.
You were right. You made a choice, and it was a risky one, and it paid off extremely well. Don't give up on it, and make it something big. It's yours. It's a child that has been fending for itself, has been fighting for itself, and has made a splash and has made a lot of noise with no help. I can't say no help. Like
Mm.
it's their baby, it's their show, and they're doing what they think is they're supposed to be doing. But I don't think they're going to give up on it.
No.
I think it's come to a point where it's got a life of its own, and they should be very proud of having done this show and of having done it and allowed it to be the show it is.
Mm.
We're all proud of what we've done, and we're very satisfied of having made so many people happy. If this is where it has to end, well, I'll be very happy to have been part of something that I think is special in my career. And if it continues, I'll also be very happy to have been part of something that I think is a great success for a platform that took a risk.
But you never know. You could be back in season 3. Anything can happen. It's Warrior Nun. Remember, anything could happen. And I'm not spoiling it for anyone, but I would love to see you back on season 3 because season 1 literally left us on such a cliffhanger, and your ending in season 1, it was just epic. It was just awesome, and we had to wait 2 years to get season 2. So fingers crossed. I mean, Simon Barry did release something to say that it goes on streaming times as well. So how many times it's streamed within the first 30 days?
I don't know how any of that works. I don't, because if it goes on streaming time, like, we only have 8 episodes compared to the
Yeah.
10 or the, I don't know, 15 that others do. Like, it's not a, I don't think, uh, I pray to be right when I say that I don't think it's an algorithm that's in charge of Netflix. I think there's people that are in high places and high jobs that are there for a reason because they're good at what they do,
Mm.
and they're the ones that make those ultimate decisions. And I think this is a decision they had to ponder on. I think the result has been way more than expected, not only in season 1 but on season 2 again. And it's a lot to take into consideration, but they're never going to tell you that you're going to get a renewal the next day.
No.
You know, there's so many different factors, but you know, I think the fans have been doing an incredible job to fight for their show, to fight for the things they like, and at the end of the day, the only reason we do shows is for them. It's to entertain people.
Yeah.
And I think that this is doing the right job. You're doing everything right. Anybody who's listening to this right now, you're doing everything right. You're doing everything you should. You know, whatever happens with the show isn't up to you anymore, isn't up to me or anybody involved in the project. It's just up to whatever plans or whatever the economy is asking of something right now. You know, and that escapes domain of possibilities of how we can influence.
Well, I'm confident that we're going to get a season 3 because literally if Netflix knows what's good for them, you know, if something's working, you know, carry on with it because the fans want it. It's great writing. There's a lot more stories to be told within the show. And I'm just looking forward to season 3. But William, thank you so much for give me your time to chat about your awesome character, and thank you for being part of such an awesome show. It's been such a pleasure.
No, thank you, because I you know, when we weren't getting the opportunity to be able to talk one-on-one like this, to get the fans to deliver the fans something special like a one-on-one with the actors that they're seeing on the show. These programs like yours allow us to do that, and there's several of us on the show that said, listen, we owe this following a bit of interaction. We really do. As I said, because they're doing such an extraordinary push for us that it's unfair. I don't usually do these things, but you know, I when they're for people, when they're for this following, it's not a problem. It's not a hassle. It's an honor.
Well, so hopefully I did okay.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know. You know, your kids were getting in the way constantly.
Do you know what? I can't hear them.
Screaming all over the place.
I literally cannot hear my kids. So obviously the chloroform has worked.
Good.
Exactly. You know, it's fantastic. We've got it in a spray bottle. We normally.
I do see that you have like in your background. You have is that padding on the walls so you don't.
No,
it's got a soundproof.
No, this is green screen. It's green screen.
Green screen. I just have all these alcohol bottles are real, but I don't want to be considered like I haven't used any of them. It's just the background that I found.
That is fine. Thank you so much. You keep safe and stay super, my friend.
Brian, thank you very much for a super interview.